My mom tapped her champagne glass, and the whole ballroom went silent. It was my parents' 30th anniversary, and I'd spent 6 months planning every detail, funding the entire $15,000 party out of my own pocket while my older brother showed up empty-handed. But when Mom took the microphone, she didn't thank me. She smiled, pulled an official legal folder from her purse, and walked straight over to my table. She dropped a stack of documents in front of me, handed me a pen, and said through the microphone so all 80 guests could hear, "Sign your house over to your brother. It's time you stop being selfish and support this family." Everyone gasped. My brother smirked. But what my mother didn't realize was that I had spent the last 2 weeks discovering why she was so desperate for that deed, and my next move was about to destroy her entire plan. My name is Chloe, I'm 32 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I have lived in the shadow of my older brother, Julian. I work as a senior project manager at a civil engineering firm. It's a steady, demanding job, but it allowed me to buy my first home 4 years ago, a comfortable 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburban neighborhood that I worked 80-hour weeks to pay off early. Meanwhile, Julian was the golden child who could do no wrong. Every failed business venture, every unpaid bill, every reckless decision he made was swept under the rug by my mother, Brenda. To Mom, Julian was a visionary who just needed a little boost, while I was the reliable cash cow expected to keep quiet and fix everyone else's problems. That night at the anniversary party was supposed to be about celebrating 30 years of my parents' marriage. I had booked the grand ballroom at the historic downtown hotel, hired a jazz quartet, and arranged a customized 3-course dinner. I stood near the head table, wearing a dark navy dress, feeling a quiet sense of pride as our extended family friends, and my father's business associates toasted the evening. Then came the moment for toasts. My father spoke briefly, thanking everyone for coming. Then my mother took the stage, holding a golden microphone, her eyes locking onto me with a strange, chilling intensity. She praised Julian first, talking about his entrepreneurial spirit, completely ignoring the fact that I had arranged and financed the entire night. Then came the turn that shattered everything. She reached into her leather tote bag, pulled out a heavy manila folder, and walked down the steps toward my table. The room was dead quiet. She laid the papers in front of my plate, unsheathed a silver pen, and delivered her ultimatum over the PA system. Julian sat 2 seats away, crossing his arms and leaning back with a smug, self-satisfied grin. 80 pairs of eyes landed on me, heavy with shock and confusion. I looked down at the top page of the legal packet. It was an expedited quitclaim deed, formatted to transfer full ownership of my home to Julian for a nominal fee of $1. My skin turned ice cold, but I forced my breathing to stay steady. I picked up the pen, looked my mother dead in her eyes, and placed the pen back down on top of the paper. "No," I said, my voice cutting through the silent room without the aid of a microphone. "I paid for this house with my own money. I am not signing anything over to anyone." My mother's face flushed a deep, angry red. "How dare you embarrass this family after everything we've done for you?" she hissed, trying to keep her voice down, but the microphone caught every word. "You're a selfish, ungrateful daughter." I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I simply grabbed my purse, stood up, and walked out of the ballroom, leaving the heavy silence of 80 stunned guests behind me. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already vibrating nonstop. Text messages flooded in from aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, calling me heartless, cold, and a monster for ruining my parents' special night. My mother sent 5 consecutive voice notes, her voice trembling with rage, accusing me of throwing away family loyalty over material possessions. Julian sent a simple text, "You're going to regret this, Chloe." I turned my phone on silent, threw it onto the passenger seat, and drove home in the dark, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I knew my mother was toxic, but demanding my actual home in front of a room full of witnesses was a level of desperation she had never shown before. Something didn't add up. The next morning I woke up early, made a strong pot of black coffee, and opened my laptop. I knew my mother's behavior wasn't just about favoritism anymore, it was about panic. For the past 6 months, Julian had been bragging to anyone who would listen about his new tech consulting startup, claiming he was on the verge of landing multi-million-dollar clients. Yet, he still lived in a rented studio apartment and constantly borrowed money for basic expenses. I decided to run a background check on Julian's registered business LLC through public state records. What I found was shocking. Julian's business was a shell company with zero active revenue. More importantly, searching county court records revealed 3 active civil lawsuits filed against him by high-interest private lenders for unpaid loans totaling over $180,000. But the worst was yet to come. As I dug deeper into local real estate property filings, I noticed a recent lien placed on my parents' primary home. The house my father believed was completely paid off. I pulled the full deed history for my parents' property. 3 months ago, a heavy secondary mortgage had been taken out against their home for $250,000 through a private, non-traditional lending agency known for predatory practices. The signatures on the document belonged to my mother and Julian. They had forged my father's signature on the paperwork. Julian hadn't been running a startup. He had developed a severe high-stakes gambling habit and racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to underground and high-interest lenders. My mother had taken out the illegal loan against her own home to pay off his most aggressive creditors, but the repayment deadline had passed, and the predatory loan company was initiating foreclosure proceedings. The full scope of the trap became terrifyingly clear. My mother didn't just want Julian to have a house. She needed my unencumbered, fully paid-off home so she could transfer its title to the predatory loan firm as substitute collateral. She was planning to hand over my house to save her own from foreclosure, hiding her and Julian's illegal forgery from my father in the process. She was entirely willing to render me homeless and financially ruined just to cover up Julian's crimes and keep her golden child out of prison. Instead of panicking, I felt a calm, cold focus settle over me. I spent the next 3 days gathering every shred of evidence. I printed the public records of Julian's unpaid debts, certified copies of the forged loan documents on my parents' house, and screenshots of the loan company's formal foreclosure notices sent to my mother. Then, I reached out to a trusted family attorney to review the documents and ensure my own asset was completely protected. 2 days later, my mother called, her tone abruptly changing from rage to desperate pleading. She begged me to come to her house for a family intervention, claiming that we needed to resolve our issues like adults. She promised that if I came over, we could discuss terms. I agreed immediately, but under one strict condition. My father had to be present at the kitchen table. My mother hesitated on the phone, her voice wavering slightly before agreeing, clearly believing she could still manipulate the situation once I was in her living room. When I arrived at my parents' house that Sunday afternoon, the tension inside was thick enough to choke on. Julian was sitting at the dining room table, scrolling through his phone with an arrogant sneer. My mother was pacing near the kitchen counter, looking visibly exhausted with dark circles under her eyes. My father sat at the head of the table, looking deeply tired, visibly saddened by the fallout from the party. He truly believed this was just a simple sibling dispute over money and inheritance. My mother didn't waste any time. As soon as I sat down, she dropped the same quitclaim deed onto the wooden table in front of me. "Chloe, we're going to fix this today," she said, trying to sound authoritative. "Your brother needs stability to launch his business. You have a good job. You can easily buy another house or rent a nice apartment. You are signing this paper today, or you are no longer part of this family." Julian nodded in agreement, looking at me as if he had already won. I looked at my father. "Dad, do you know why Mom is demanding my house?" I asked softly. My father sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Chloe, your mother says Julian needs an asset to secure a business credit line. We just want both of you to succeed." "Dad, she lied to you," I said firmly. I reached into my tote bag, pulled out a thick folder of my own, and laid it on the center of the table. I opened it, sliding the first set of documents directly in front of my father. Julian doesn't have a tech company. He has $180,000 in active gambling debts and court judgments. And Mom didn't ask for my house for a business line. She asked for it because 3 months ago, She forged your signature and took out a $250,000 predatory loan against this house to pay Julian's debts." My father's face drained of all color. He picked up the loan papers, his hands shaking violently as he recognized his own forged signature on the official documents. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice trembling. He looked up at my mother. "Brenda, what is this?" My mother went dead pale. She lunged forward, trying to snatch the papers off the table, but I blocked her arm. "It gets worse, Dad," I continued, sliding the foreclosure notice across the wood. "The loan is in default. The lenders are foreclosing on this house in 30 days. Mom's plan was to force me to sign over my paid-off house so she could transfer my deed to the lenders to clear her debt and hide the forgery from you." Julian jumped up from his chair, shouting, "She's lying. She edited those documents. She's just trying to destroy us because she's jealous." "Shut up, Julian," my father roared, standing up so fast his chair flipped backward onto the hardwood floor. I had never heard my father raise his voice like that in my entire life. He stared at my mother, tears of absolute betrayal streaming down his cheeks. "You forged my name? You put our home at risk for his gambling? You tried to steal our daughter's house." My mother broke down into hysterical sobbing, falling to her knees by the table, trying to grab my father's hands. I had to. They were going to hurt Julian. They were going to take everything. "Chloe has money. She can afford it. Please, Arthur, you have to understand. I am calling a real estate lawyer and a forensic accountant today," my father said, his voice terrifyingly quiet and cold. He looked at Julian with disgust. "And you are packing your bags and getting out of my house right now. You are 34 years old, and you have ruined this family." I stood up, picked up my folder, and looked at my mother one last time. The web of lies she had built for decades to protect her golden child had completely unraveled in less than 10 minutes. "Don't ever ask me for money, and don't ever ask me for help again," I told them calmly. I turned around and walked out the front door, leaving the sound of my mother's wailing behind me. The aftermath of that confrontation reshaped our entire family dynamic forever. My father immediately hired a lawyer and initiated legal proceedings to insulate himself from the fraudulent loan, forcing my mother to face full legal and financial accountability for the forgery. Faced with financial ruin and the truth exposed to the entire extended family, my parents separated shortly after. My father sold the family home to pay off the predatory debt, moved into a quiet townhouse, and cut off all financial communication with Julian. Julian was forced to take 2 entry-level service jobs to pay off his remaining creditors and avoid criminal charges, finally experiencing what it meant to earn a living through hard work rather than manipulation. When extended family members realized the truth about why I refused to sign the deed, every single person who had harassed me after the party sent written apologies, realizing how close they had come to supporting a criminal scam against me. As for me, I kept my boundaries ironclad. I blocked my mother and brother on all communication channels, refusing to let their toxic demands bleed into my life ever again. I spent the next year decorating my home, investing in my career, and enjoying the peace I had earned through hard work and independence. Standing up to toxic family members isn't easy, especially when they use guilt, tradition, and public shame to control you. But I learned that blood doesn't give anyone the right to destroy your life to cover up their own failures. Today, I sit on my back porch, drinking coffee in the morning sun, knowing that my home is mine, my peace is protected, and no one will ever hold me back again.